Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Helping Your Anxious Child, a Step-by-Step Guide for Parents, by Ronald M. Rapie, Ph.D., Anne Wignall, Doctor of Psychology, Susan H. Spence, Ph.D., Vanessa Cobham, Ph.D., and Heidi Lynham, Ph.D. Narrated by Tom Perkins. Publisher's Note: this audiobook is packaged with bonus material which has been included on the first audio and MP3 CD. If you downloaded this audiobook in a digital format, please visit Tantor.com and type Helping Your Anxious Child, a Step-by-Step Guide for Parents into the search box. Follow the link to the book's page, then click on PDF Extra 1. When prompted, enter the access code CALM to access the bonus material. Introduction. Welcome. Being the parent of an anxious child can be a roller coaster. While anxious children are often thoughtful and caring, they can also be exasperating and place extra demands on parents in terms of time and emotion. Often, extended family and friends do not see the distress being experienced by both the child and his or her immediate family. When a child always seems to be scared of something and begins to miss out on so many of life's rewards, most parents are desperate to help. So, it is understandably frustrating when nothing you do seems to work. Sometimes the things you try seem to make children worse in the long term, and because most people think that children will just grow out of it at some point, many families suffer for a long time before they find out that something can be done. Anxiety is a common problem among children and adults alike, and there are many successful treatment programs run by professionals that have been developed to provide much-needed help. The program you are about to embark on is different. It is an adaptation of the proven professional programs designed to allow parents to teach anxiety management skills to their own child. This book is designed to guide parents through a structured course of readings and activities that will help you to teach your child to manage his or her anxiety, and will help you to learn new ways of responding to anxious behavior. Each chapter includes children's activities to encourage children to be actively involved in taking control of their anxiety, and practice tasks that will help you and your child to practice new skills in everyday life. We hope that you enjoy the program and that your child conquers his or her fears and worries by successfully learning anxiety management skills. How to use this program. We know that every child is different, and so is every family. So there are no hard and fast rules in running this program, and if you think of a better way to do something, then we encourage you to try it. But we have had many years of experience in running programs like this one and in working with children and their parents. Based on this experience, we can share with you some of the principles that work best for the majority of families. First, the activities and readings in this book are best completed in the order they appear. Each set of readings and activities is designed to build on the last set. If you jump ahead, you may find that you haven't yet learned the previous skill, and that will make progress much more difficult. Some children, however, will move more quickly or more slowly than others. So how fast you work through the chapter is up to you, and should be based on your child's own personal circumstances. In the activities, you will be encouraged to include several examples of the same task. If your child catches the idea of a particular activity after one or two examples, it is not necessary to complete the rest of the examples. If your child needs the extra practice to grasp the ideas, then complete all of the examples. For some children, you may need to spend 2 or 3 weeks on the same chapter and exercises, and repeat them all. Don't be afraid to try again. It is much better for your child to be a little bit bored than to not understand. You will need to set aside time in your schedule to work on the program if you want to see your child managing anxiety. We recommend that you make a particular set time each week to be your anxiety management session. This does not mean that you only work on your child's anxiety at that time. Far from it. But this will be the main time that you read over the next chapter, talk with your child about the tasks and activities, and plan the next week's exercises and practice. For example, you may decide that Sunday mornings after breakfast will be your anxiety management session time. Think of it like another season of dancing or football or piano. Every Sunday morning for a few months, you will sit down with your child to work on his or her anxiety management skills. You need to make sure this is possible. For example, plan your weekend activities around this time and make sure that the rest of your family are either part of the program or occupied somewhere else. You will see 3 types of activities described in this book. First, in the main body of most chapters, you will find parent activity sections. Reading the chapter and doing the parent activities are tasks that you need to do before you sit down with your child to prepare you for the anxiety management session. Most of the time, these will be issues you need to think about or skills that you need to learn in order to help your child. Next, at the end of each chapter, you will find a set of children's activity sections. These are the activities, exercises, and lessons that you need to go over with your child so that he or she can learn to manage anxiety, and these should be done during your weekly anxiety management session. Each child activity has some notes for you, the parent. These notes provide a short, simple description of what you need to explain to your child based on what you have read in the chapter, and an example of a completed worksheet that uses the anxiety management skill. Your child will need blank copies of the worksheets so he or she can practice the skills during the week. You can download the Helping Your Anxious Child Workbook, offered free to users of this book on the Internet at www.ceh.mq.edu.au/hyac.html. In the downloadable workbook, each activity described at the end of the chapters is available for use with your child and contains child-friendly explanations of the relevant skill for you to read with your child, and blank worksheets based on those used in the examples within the chapter that your child can complete with your help. Finally, at the very end of most chapters, you will find children's practice task sections. These practice tasks are the most important component. They describe exercises that your child will have to practice many times throughout the week in order to really learn the particular skill. These are the skills that your child will need to learn to manage anxiety, and so these practice tasks will need to be done many times, sometimes for several weeks, until your child gets really good at the particular skill. Worksheets for these tasks are also included in the downloadable workbook. The workbook is designed to save you time and to help you translate what you read into child-friendly language. A few things to keep in mind. The readings and activities should be completed over 2 to 4 months. Although it may be tempting to move through the entire program in the first week when you are feeling enthusiastic, it is better to work through it at a consistent pace. That way, you won't burn out before the program finishes, and it will help to create the habit of tackling anxious thoughts, feelings, and behaviors on an everyday basis. The program will work better if both parents work through the readings and activities. One of the most important features of a successful program is being able to put the skills into practice in all parts of the child's life, and this is much more likely if both parents know what to do. The same goes for any other adult who your child spends a significant amount of time with, such as step-parents, grandparents, or nannies. If some of the anxiety occurs at school, then it might be helpful to meet with your child's teacher and talk about what you are trying to achieve. But if some of the people in your child's life are not interested in what you are doing, don't give up. We have seen some spectacular successes, even in cases where one parent had no interest whatsoever in helping with the program. The program is also very successful in single-parent families. Finally, don't get discouraged by slow progress and setbacks. Keep in mind that your child has had many years to develop anxious ways of behaving and thinking, It will take more than a few weeks, as well as a lot of persistence, to change these patterns. Especially at times when you or your child are stressed, don't give up. Find an enjoyable activity to do, and then, when things are a little calmer, come back and keep on working. Seeing a mental health professional. We mentioned earlier that this book is designed to provide parents with all the information they need to help their child overcome anxiety. That's true. But we all know that knowing something and doing it properly are two different things. That is why we strongly recommend that you see a qualified mental health professional about your child's anxiety if you possibly can. If you picked up this book from a bookstore or through the internet, and you have not seen a professional about your child, this is particularly important. A mental health professional will be able to properly assess your child and let you know whether this program is appropriate for him or her. A professional can also help you to apply the information in this book to the specific circumstances of your and your child's lives. And a professional can help to keep you motivated at times when nothing seems to be working, or can help you adapt the program to get over those tough hurdles. But if a professional gave you this book or told you to get it, then we are pretty confident it will help. Our scientific research with children who had been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder tells us that when parents were given a copy of this program and told to help their own child with no extra professional help, around 1 in 5 children were completely free of an anxiety diagnosis after going through the program, and many more made strong gains. When several short sessions with a therapist were added to help parents stay on the right track, over 60% of children who completed the program were diagnosis-free. What to expect during this program? Don't expect that you'll have things sorted out in just a few weeks. Do expect that there will be noticeable changes before completing the program. Do expect to make progress in a zigzag fashion rather than a straight line, that is, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Do expect that any narrow or highly defined worries, such as where the only worry is being afraid of dogs or going to sleep in the dark, will be easier to make progress on than broad or generalized worries, such as getting worried about any new situation or social event that comes up. Do expect that children will need to keep practicing skills for some time after the program has finished, until their new skills in thinking and behaving are everyday habits. Will anxiety go away completely? Someone who has no anxiety at all would be in a lot of trouble. Anxiety is a normal emotion that helps us to perform to the best of our abilities and protects us in dangerous situations. The aim of this program is to bring anxiety down to manageable levels. We want children to manage anxiety so that they get the helpful effects, like revving up before a big game, without the bad effects, like avoiding situations that might otherwise be fun. As you will learn later, anxiety is also part of a person's makeup or personality. This program will teach your child new ways of coping so that anxiety should no longer rule his or her life. But you will find that even after finishing the program, your child will probably always be a slightly more emotional or sensitive person than some other children you know, and that is not a bad thing. Parent activity: getting ready for the program. Here are a few summary points to think about to get you ready to run this program with your child. You will need to put time and effort into helping your child learn to manage anxiety, just like you would if you were helping your child learn the piano or to improve his or her reading. Your child will also need to have the time to put into this program. It will also be much better, but not absolutely necessary, if other important people in your child's life are also willing to help. You should plan a time that you and your child will set aside each week to complete an anxiety management session, around 30 to 60 minutes. You will need to make sure that the time is reserved and doesn't get pushed aside, and that other members of your family have something to do and won't disturb you. You will need to be prepared to spend additional time outside of this session in practicing skills and repeating key points. As the parent, you will also need to set a time each week before the anxiety management session to read over the next chapter, do any parent activities, and be prepared for the session with your child. Chapter 1. Understanding Anxiety. Emily had a secret problem. She was 12 years old and still afraid of the dark. At night, when her family was asleep, she would often hear strange noises outside, and she would panic, imagining that they were being robbed, or that they'd all be murdered while they slept. Emily still kept a nightlight on in her room and would often run to her parents' room on particularly bad nights and slip into their bed. She'd never take the garbage out at night or go upstairs alone after dark, and she usually insisted on her parents checking her room before she went to sleep. Because of her fear, which was a secret to everyone except her parents, Emily never accepted invitations to sleep over at friends' houses and found excuses to not go to summer camp. Emily's parents had tried to push her to face her fears and sleep in the dark, but she became so upset and they had so many fights that eventually they just gave in to her fears. Now her parents feel frustrated at the limitations that Emily's fear causes both in her own life and for everyone else in their family. 10-year-old Connor had a different problem. He was extremely shy. At home, he would talk freely with his family. At school or with strangers, Connor was different. He was terrified that he would do the wrong thing and make a fool of himself. He hated to speak in front of the class. Even though he could play the piano beautifully, he was too scared to perform at the school concert. In the schoolyard, he was usually alone, afraid to join in with the other children. Problems like Emily's and Connor's are common, normal, and quite easily handled. But they can often cause unpleasant and potentially serious interference in children's lives and in the lives of their families. Their stories give you a quick look at some of the many different ways that anxiety can affect children's lives. Fear, worry, and anxiety in children can take many forms. All children experience fears and phobias at particular stages of their lives, and this is a normal part of growing up. For example, we know that young infants will develop a fear of separating from their mothers at the same time they begin to fear strangers and new people. A little later, most children will be scared of the dark, and at some point, many young children begin to imagine monsters under the bed and burglars at the door. In the teenage years, self-consciousness and shyness become a very common and often annoying part of developing maturity. When these fears develop, they're usually just part of the normal developmental process that we all go through. But sometimes, fears and worrying can reach a point where they start to cause a problem for the child. These excessive fears are often temporary and transient, but may still cause such distress that, as a parent, you want to help your child hurry through this stage. On the other hand, some children will experience fears and worries to a much greater degree than their peers, and some continue to experience fears long after other children their age have outgrown them. Some fears can be very understandable and based on obvious causes. For example, children may be scared to go to school because they are being bullied, or they may be scared of the dark following a burglary at home. In other cases, the fears and worries that children experience are much harder for parents to understand. For example, the child who worries that he or she is stupid may be doing perfectly well at school and elsewhere in life. Or a child may be scared that mom will be killed in a car accident, even though mom always makes sure she picks him or her up on time. Or a child may worry about and imagine every possible disaster, even though nothing really bad has ever happened to him or her. In these cases, the anxiety may be an entrenched part of the child's personality, and you may feel as though your child has been sensitive and high-strung for all of his or her life. Many adults believe that childhood is a time of carefree days and no responsibility. It may surprise you to know that, in fact, Anxiety is the most common problem reported by children of all ages. Diagnosable anxiety disorders are found in around 1 in 10 children, and less extreme but still distressing fears are even more common. Anxiety and worry affect children of all ages, from infants to adolescents. Girls or boys, rich or poor, brilliant or average, it makes no difference. Anxiety can affect anyone. Some parents may think, "So what? Everyone gets nervous sometimes. It doesn't hurt anyone, so why all the fuss?" To some extent, these parents may be right. Anxiety is not as dramatic a problem as a child contemplating suicide or engaged in drug abuse. But anxiety is a sign of real personal suffering. It's not an act or a way of getting sympathy, although in a few cases this can complicate the picture. Anxiety can also cause marked interference in children's lives, bringing down their school performance, interfering with friendships, and affecting the whole family. In addition, in some cases, anxiety in childhood can be the beginning of a lifetime of anxiousness that, in severe cases, can lead to the more serious problems we just mentioned: drug and alcohol abuse, depression, and even suicide. If you're a parent with an anxious child, you need not fret or worry excessively. Anxiety can be managed. But it's good to be motivated to do something to help your child. Managing anxiousness and helping your child to develop confidence and control in life is much the same no matter what form the anxiety takes. In this book, we will describe some of the common types of children's anxieties, increase your understanding of children's anxiety, and teach you how you can help your child master his or her fears. We will discuss all sorts of anxieties, from the minor, temporary fears that many children experience to the longer, more severe and invasive problems that can so extensively restrict a child's life. Most importantly, we will describe in detail skills and strategies that you can use to help your child to learn to control his or her fears. We will begin our discussion of anxious children by describing several children who we've seen and who have benefited from these strategies. We'll come back to these children throughout the course of this book and use them to show how each of the techniques can be applied to the real world. Some real-life anxious children. Talia's story. Talia is a typical 9-year-old with a big group of friends and a cheeky streak. She loves rock music, is a member of the school basketball team, and rarely worries about a thing. But Talia is scared of water. She learned to swim when she was 5 years old, but she's never enjoyed it and has always avoided deep water as much as possible. When her father takes her out beyond where she can stand, she begins to panic, clings tightly to him, and begs him to take her back. No one can figure out why Talia is afraid of the water. She has never had a bad experience there and has never known anyone who has drowned. Both of her brothers love swimming and surfing. Yet, something about the water has always been frightening to Talia, and, try as she might, she just can't talk herself out of it. Now that Talia is getting older and starting to go to pool parties and the beach with friends, she is running out of excuses, and her swimming phobia is beginning to become a problem. Kurt's story. 10-year-old Kurt is a worrier. He worries about his schoolwork. He worries about his parents' health, and he worries that he will forget to feed his dog and she will starve. Kurt's parents no longer let him watch the evening news because he spends the next 2 days worrying about all the tragic stories he has seen. They also don't tell him about new things that he is going to have to do until the very last moment, because when they do, he pesters them mercilessly with his constant questions about what is going to happen. This interrogation also happens whenever Kurt has to do something unpleasant, such as take a test at school or go to the dentist. Kurt will ask his parents for information and reassurance hundreds of times. Kurt also worries about germs. He's scared when he touches certain things that germs have gotten onto his hands and that he will get sick and die. He worries about infections and all sorts of illnesses. As a result of his worries, Kurt washes his hands again and again all day long. For example, after going to the bathroom, Kurt will scrub his hands for several minutes. He will also rush off to wash whenever he has touched something he thinks may be contaminated, such as door handles and seats where other people have been sitting. Kurt refuses to go to certain places, such as hospitals or the cafeteria at his school, because of the germs he thinks are there. He will sometimes get particular ideas about things that are contaminated that will then become taboo. For example, he went through a phase of avoiding the backyard because the dog had once thrown up there. Last week, Kurt caught the train with his mother, and they sat opposite a man who sneezed several times. When he got home, Kurt raced straight to the shower and washed for 45 minutes. George's story. Now that he's 12 years old, George's parents believe that he should be doing a lot of things by himself. But George has little self-confidence and worries a great deal about what other people think of him. He has always been a nervous, sensitive, and shy child, and he grew up having very few friends. Since beginning middle school this year, George has retreated even more into his shell. It took him most of the year to make his first friend, Tony, who is also a bit of an outsider. In class, George's teachers report that he rarely says a word, and that he becomes very upset if he is asked to answer a question or speak in front of the class. At home, George is quite talkative with his family, but becomes quiet if anyone he doesn't know well comes over. George has very specific rules about what clothes he can and cannot wear. He will always get his parents to deal with sales clerks and cashiers, and he will never answer the telephone. Despite his parents' urging, George has never joined a club or team, and spends most of his time at home alone, building models. From time to time, George talks about feeling lonely, and he has gone through a few periods of feeling quite down and miserable. Lashy's story. Lashy is a 7-year-old girl whose parents separated when she was 5. Since the separation, Lashy has begun to worry a great deal about her mother. She is terrified that her mother will be killed in a car accident or by a burglar, and that she will never see her again. Lashy cries whenever her mother leaves her, and she refuses to be left alone with a babysitter or even to sleep over at her grandmother's home. As a result, Lashy's mother has hardly been out since the separation. She is beginning to lose her friends and has no chance to meet other men. Sometimes Lashy is willing to stay overnight with her father, but she spends the whole time asking about her mother, and lately she hasn't been willing to stay with him at all. Lashy's parents still get on well despite the separation, and they agree that they need to work together to help Lashy overcome her worries. It is a real struggle every morning to get Lashy to go to school, and sometimes Lashy's mother gives in and takes a day off work to let her stay at home. Lashy also worries about burglars breaking into the house and is scared of the dark. Over the past few weeks, she has begun to sleep in her mother's bed, something her mother has allowed because it is just too much of a struggle to argue. Lashy's mother loves her daughter very much, but just lately she has really begun to get fed up with the limitations on her life and is starting to feel angry and resentful. In addition to her main anxiety, Lashy also has a fear of injections, doctors, and hospitals. Most of the time, this is not a big problem, but occasionally it makes it very difficult for Lashy to go to the doctors for treatment and even to visit a sick friend. Having shots is the biggest problem. Lashy missed her last vaccination because she would not allow the nurse to give her an injection. Jess's story. Jess is 11. Her parents are worried about how Jess will ever cope when she goes to high school, given how much she worries about everything. Jess worries when her parents go out, worries about keeping her friends, about doing well enough at school, about events from the past and in the future, and about possible dangers. She always expects things to go wrong and does not like to go outside her comfortable routine. Jess even worries about how much she worries. She has a couple of close friends at school, but fears that one day they will suddenly decide that they don't like her. She doesn't want to make new friends in case that ruins her current friendships. Jess is a very bright girl, and she produces flawless work almost all of the time, spending hours making sure that everything is absolutely correct, but just performs very badly during long
Sample complete. Ready to continue?